Welcome to another Lord's Day for the Heidelberg Catechism. Today's Lord's Day, number 18, and we continue looking at the Apostles' Creed. We have a few more weeks of that. Today we're looking at one specific phrase, and the phrase comes to us in question number 46. Question 46 then is, what do you mean by saying he ascended to heaven? The answer is that Christ, while his disciples watched, was lifted up from the earth to heaven and will be there for our good until he comes again to judge the living and the dead. You know, Jesus' ascension sometimes goes unnoticed. We celebrate his birth in a big way during Advent and Christmas. We celebrate his passion, his suffering, his death and resurrection in a big way during Lent and Easter. Did you know that there is actually a day on the church calendar called the Day of Ascension, and it comes on the 40th day of Easter? Yes, Easter is more than a day. Easter is a season. And the Day of Ascension is the 40th day of Easter, and it comes on a Thursday. So do you recall ever going to church, and maybe there have been times, but do you ever recall going to church on a Thursday, the Day of Ascension, to remember and celebrate that? You know, his ascension is important. Very important, even if we don't celebrate it each year. And that's why the Apostles' Creed mentions it. And that's why the following three more questions deal specifically with the ascension and its results. So here's question 47. But isn't Christ with us until the end of the world as he promised us? And the answer is, Christ is truly human and truly God. In his human nature, Christ is not now on earth. But in his divinity, his majesty, grace, and spirit, he is not absent for us for a moment. Question 48. If his humanity is not present wherever his divinity is, then aren't the two natures of Christ separated from each other? And the answer is certainly not. Since divinity is not limited and is present everywhere, it is evident that Christ's divinity is surely beyond the bounds of the humanity he has taken on. But at the same time, his divinity is in and remains personally united to his humanity. And here is the million-dollar question. How does Christ's ascension to heaven benefit us? Here's the answer. There's three parts. We'll come back to the three different parts, but here's the answer. First, he pleads our cause in heaven in the presence of his Father. Second, we have our own flesh in heaven, a guarantee that Christ our head will take us, his members, to himself in heaven. And third, he sends his Spirit to us on earth as a further guarantee. By the Spirit's power, we make the goal of our lives not earthly things, but the things above where Christ is, sitting at God's right hand. First, let me give you the definition of ascension according to Zondervan Bible Dictionary. The ascension of Jesus Christ means the movement of the eternal Son in his assumed and glorified humanity from earth to heaven in order to sit at the right hand of Father as co-regent. So after Jesus' resurrection from the dead, he appeared to his disciples, many disciples, and at many times. Then, as recorded in Mark 16, verse 19, Jesus was taken up into heaven, and he sat down at the right hand of God. Question 49 says that we have benefit in this, the fact that Jesus ascended into heaven. And here are those three benefits, those three parts of the answer. The first part is that he pleads our cause in heaven in the presence of his Father. See, Jesus is in heaven, wherever that is, pleading our case. Every time our accuser says, hey, there's another sin. Hey, Doug's at it again. There's another and another and another, and you get my drift. Every time the accuser is ready to convict us again for some new or some old sin, Jesus is ready to step in and say to the Father, I already covered that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and you get my drift. He is there 24/7 by 365 by the number of however many years there are, pleading our case as our mediator, the only high priest we need ever because he ascended. The second is that we have our own flesh in heaven, a guarantee that Christ our head will take us, his members, to himself in heaven. See, Jesus ascended in bodily form. There is a bodily resurrection. Because there's a bodily resurrection, our body, united with Christ, is in heaven now with Christ, united with Christ, and we are assured of that same bodily resurrection as well, just like Jesus, because he ascended. And how do we know that? The third part of the answer says that he sends his Spirit to us on earth as that guarantee. Even though Jesus left us in bodily form, he is still with each and every one of us in spiritual form. With Jesus' death and resurrection and ascension, he can send the Holy Spirit, the counselor, the advocate, our comforter, to be with us and guide us day after day after day. As Jesus himself points out in John chapter 16, verses 5 to 16, the Holy Spirit will be to us just like Jesus was in the flesh to his disciples. That's my summarization. The Holy Spirit is just to us like Jesus was to his disciples. He's with us always because he ascended. Case closed, right? Now we all know exactly how Jesus ascended to heaven in bodily form. Well, if you do, please let me know. But I don't think it's important to know exactly how he ascended. That will remain a mystery. If we have to always understand every mystery, we're not going to get it. We won't understand some of those mysteries now, but we will find out. Because Jesus rose bodily and is in heaven in bodily form, so we will be also because he ascended. Jesus was taken up into heaven and he sat down at the right hand of God. And that was needed also, just like his birth, his suffering, his death, and his resurrection. That was needed also for you and for me. This ends Lord's Day 18. Join me again next week for Lord's Day 19.